Okay, I got 2 o'clock. So we'll get started. Okay, under the new charter of the town of Clinton, it describes that the town manager shall hold hearings with each department, board, commission, or agency on their proposed budget. So the purpose of today's hearing, as well as another one to be scheduled on Monday the 27th, is to hear presentations from the individual departments on the nature of your budgets. In addition to this public hearing format, there have been a series of one-on-ones with the departments to discuss their budgets further. So that being said, we'll start the hearing process of providing descriptions of what your budget includes. The first on the list is the town manager's budget, which makes it easy for me to do. So the town manager's budget includes funding for the town manager instead of the first selectman. There's one other full-time employee, one part-time employee, as well as a stipend for the town council members. That comprises the majority of the expenses in this particular budget. There are smaller line items that include funding for the postage machine and office supplies. There will be an increase over the prior year with providing the funding for all of the employees and the stipends for the town council members. Next up is finance. So, because we're on camera, for the benefit of the public, please come to the table.
Is this good? All right, I'm representing the finance department. Our department is made up of 4 people, myself, the finance director. We have an assistant finance director, the payroll person, and the accounts payable person. Our budget is mainly made up of the salaries of the 4 of us. We also have the current town treasurer's stipend, which is a minor stipend. Is paid quarterly. We have miscellaneous travel expense. We also pay the support for our accounting software. The e-finance software comes out of our budget. And we have miscellaneous travel expense that we have to attend some monthly meetings, postage, general supplies, and some dues and fees for some professional organizations. Our budget is actually decreased by about $10,000 this year because some professional services that were in the last fiscal year are not required for this coming fiscal year. Okay.
Next up is Registrar of Voters to discuss the elections budget.
I guess. Registrar's office consists of 2 of us on a regular basis. Obviously, during elections, there are multiples people that we employ. Our budget is mostly poll workers, service contracts. We have general supplies. We have other supplies which include food for primaries, presidential budgets. We do feed the people. We have dues and fees. We belong to ROVAC, which is the Registrar of Voters Association, and we're also mandated by the Secretary of State's office that we need to take certain classes through UConn. And then we have our miscellaneous expenditures and postage that we use, especially during our canvass, which includes an outgoing envelope and an incoming envelope, which need to have postage on them. And the canvass is done from January until April 30th, also mandated by the state of Connecticut. And we do that in conjunction with the national change of address through the postal system. I have some statistics just for interest, if anybody's interested, polling amounts. You sure? Okay. Our total voters in this town as of today are 10,023. Democrats are 2,928. Republicans are 2,567. Unaffiliateds are 4,342. And the others are 186, which include the Green Party, Independent, and Libertarian.
So it's fair to say the majority of your budget is driven by state statute.
Correct.
Dictating what you have to do.
Yes.
And depending on how many elections you have in a given year, your budget will fluctuate depending on how many budget referenda.
Yep.
And then the nature of the election. And
Right, primaries.
for the 2021 election year, we're dealing with presidential.
Correct. And there's also bonding that could be put in there at any given point. And we did have, what was the one we had for the property over there that we did the half-day vote?
To purchase a property?
No, that was the one we did the half-day. I can't remember what that one, because that was the first time we ever did that also. So, yeah, it is mandated.
Okay.
Thank you. Next up would be the town clerk's office.
Do you have a question? Okay. Majority of my budget is salaries. The salary line item is down about $14,000 from last year. I lost a part-timer last year, and I have a new full-timer this year, so her salary is not what the other full-timer was making. There's a decrease there. Let's see, we have a contract for our microfilming. Takes care of our land records, our audits, our storage of microfilm related charges, our monthly contract fee, and our support staff for our land records, our software. It's contractual. The miscellaneous vitals statistics is our fee charge when we receive a birth, marriage, or death certificate from another town. They charge up to $2 a piece for anything over $26. We have to pay for that. General supplies, this is for our office supplies, postage to return recorded documents per state statute. It's all included in our recording fees that we have to return these documents. Election costs, this is for legal notices, ballots, elections, referendums, and related supplies, and primaries for the ballots mostly. Dog licenses, cost for the mailing, reminders, notices, dog tags, envelopes, and related supplies. Computer CDs, files of maps. This is for the maps we record on the land records to be sent out, be microfilmed, printed for the map books, and CDs made of the maps so we can download them in our files and print them for the public. The other item is general code, which is contractual. This is for our ordinance books, our yearly maintenance fees, in additions to our ordinance books, which again is contractual. So just to wrap it up, our salaries are down due to the part-timer being cut last year and my new assistant's pay being lower. Any questions? Thank you.
Next up is the assessor.
So our salary, which includes myself, an assistant, and clerk, which is the top line here. Travel expenses, which includes meetings and also court expenses, going to court. In service is for education, which we go to UConn every year, and any other educational or mandated classes that we need. Other professional tech service is maps, which is the only increase really to our budget. We didn't have this in here last year, and this year we had to have it in there. Other professional services, which is our quality data, which is where we generate our bills. That's contractual. Technical service is also vision, which is our field cards, our mapping, and our GIS. That is also mandated. Postage is basically for our personal property declarations for all our businesses and our increased notices that go out after the ground list is signed. General supplies is general supplies in our office. Periodicals are our motor vehicle books and our Department of Motor Vehicle Services. We are linked into motor vehicle. And dues and fees are just our meetings and anything else we have to go to that's mandated. That's it.
So periodicals are the tools you use to value things, so you have to have that. It's not,
Yeah,
it's not
that's our main tool. So like I said, the only increase is for the maps, really, which we have to have. That's it. Okay.
Thank you. Next up is tax collector.
The tax office is comprised of 2 full-time employees, myself and one other full-time, and then we have 1 part-time. That is the bulk of our budget. The rest of our budget is broken down between travel expense to and from classes, fees to pay quality data services to run the software for our office, and let's see what else. Postage, contractual mailing of the bills, sending out the bills, printing the bills, general supplies, printing rate books and final posted rate books, DMV fees, dues, fees and classes to continue our certification for certified tax collectors. Our part-timer is starting her certification this year so that she would be ready to take on a full-time position if it ever comes available. And the other item on there is our search engine that we used for all our return mail people we can't find is LexisNexis. That is all I have.
Next up is the building department.
Okay, the building department consists of 2 full-time employees, myself, the building official, and 1 administrative assistant, and that's reflected in the salaries full-time line item. Following through the other line items, other professional technical services. These are funds reserved for engineering or professional testing services that may be required to assess the structural integrity of a building if we cannot find a responsible party to do so. Inspection coverage. These are funds allocated to hire outside help for coverage during vacations, medical, personal, or other allowed reasons for any amount of extended leave. Software maintenance and technical support. These are costs incurred from our outside vendor who's under contract to maintain our department's software and to provide any upgrades that may be required to occur. General supplies, stationery, stamps, registered mailings, office supplies, those types of things. Training and code books. The state of Connecticut is going to be adopting a new version of the building code. So this new library will have to be purchased sometime towards the end of the fiscal year so that we can read them and begin to realize what the changes are going to be when we adopt the new code in October of 2020. There's a small amount in there under other equipment, safety. These are just for personal items that I may need in the course of my testing, such as electrical testers, lighting, things of that nature. Dues and fees will cover the trade organizations that we belong to, like the CBOA and the ICC. Okay.
Next on my list is the probate court, which is a pass-through expense to the regional probate court. The dollar amount is not proposed to increase. The budget is only $4,500. That's our share of the regional probate court. Next up is Zoning Board of Appeals, followed by Inland Wetlands, followed by Planning and Zoning, and only one person doing it.
So I'm representing Land Use, Planning and Zoning, Inland Wetlands, and Zoning Board of Appeals. Just to give a general overview of the budget, the Inland Wetlands budget salary line item shows an increase because we now have a full-time wetlands enforcement officer, me, whereas before we had 2 interim wetland enforcement officers who were volunteers from the Inland Wetlands Commission. Other items remain the same. The Planning and Zoning budget has an increase in professional services because there is a requirement that flood permits be reviewed by our consulting town engineer. This practice has not been done on a consistent basis in past years, and therefore we will see an increase. There has been an increase in training requested for planning and zoning because the Connecticut Association of Zoning Enforcement Officers training is $600 per session. There are 2 sessions per year. And we added that in case the person we hire as a new planning and zoning clerk needs that training. As CEO, I will need continuing education to keep my Casio certification on my standing. Postage was decreased substantially as we moved to more digital communication. In addition, Planning and Zoning Commission would like to begin review and overhaul of the zoning regulations. A professional consultant will need to be hired to do this, so there will be budget increases to do this in chunks over the next few years, and the Zoning Board of Appeals budget is very small, and no increases are being requested. Anything else?
So the Board of Appeals is basically flat. So
Yeah.
that's, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next up, Economic Development Commission.
The Economic Development Commission is pretty much under a charter to advise the town council and the town manager, but pretty much we have this broken down into some overarching objectives. One is to retain our current businesses, to attract new businesses, and as we move forward more and more is to market the town overall. And to do that, the budget by function is kind of broken down into 3 or 4 major objectives. One is marketing, which we're asking for a marketing budget this year to promote the town, to promote the summer of the town, to promote businesses to come into the town, to lead them into hopefully an enhanced website, which is another an outside service. We're working together with IT people, but we put some money in there to actually revise our current EDC websites. Right now it's a privately run site, to make it part of the town, actually to link it together with some other kind of data, pretty much make it more consumer friendly and data rich than it is right now, to put it in terms. So we've got a website, we have an outreach part of the budget, which deals with actually joining some memberships like the National Association of Commercial Developers. And then outside services, we're actually cutting the budget by $18,000 this year because we're not going to be listing CERC, which we had a lot of the year before. But we would like to have a part-time, working together with other folks, a part-time web manager. We've just put it in here for like a half a day once a week just to keep our sites up to date, current. And it seems to me as identified that's a very important thing as we move forward to have these websites, and how can they stay current, especially if we make them much more important in driving people to the website to find out what's going on. Supplies is nothing, so pretty much the bulk of the money here is in the advertising budget, which we're requesting for, and again, the bottom line is about roughly $18,000 less than last year is what the request is for.
Okay, thank you. Next up is technology.
Good afternoon. The IT department's our primary mission is to support all the department users. We have 2 employees, and broadly we have 4 accounts. Professional services, which are contracts for professional services that we share with the Board of Education. We have IT technology and software. That's the software applications that all the different departments use, antivirus and so forth. Communications services, which includes our cable, cellular, our POTS lines. That's the largest line item in our budget. And our support to the contracts for copiers and printers. More specifically, moving from the broad to the more specific, firewall management, wide area networking, server, video support, network services, those come under a contract, and everything else is pretty straightforward. There's been really no additional changes from the previous 2 years.
Part of that limited amount of change is one of your bigger line items, which is our relationship with the Board of Education.
That's
So
correct.
It's not redundancy, we're working together on some aspects of IT.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Human Services.
Good afternoon. Human Services consists of the town's social services, its youth and family services, and the Drug and Alcohol Abuse Prevention Coalition Partners in Community, or PIC. Our budget for this year is basically flat. The exception to that being in the social services portion of what we do. We're asking for two things. One is an increase in discretionary money to help residents with emergencies. We have received $5,000 to the best of my knowledge for about 8 years, and I'm asking that to increase to $10,000. For context, Clinton has the second highest poverty rate in Middlesex County, second only to Middletown, and other poverty indicators, we pretty much run second in Middlesex County as well. But this particular line began as a partnership between the town and Families Helping Families, each giving $5,000 for this purpose, which could be helping to keep someone in their house. It could be getting their utility turned back on, a variety of different things it's used for. It could be getting car fixed so people can get to their job. But it was a $5,000 partnership, and the town portion has stayed the same. Families Helping Families is now giving $10,000 to $12,000 for this purpose. As a matter of fact, Families Helping Families gives to our social services in various efforts about $20,000 a year at this point, while the town contribution has remained at $5,000. Families Helping Families has requested that this come back more in balance and supports this proposal. The other request that we have is for some seasonal extra hours, 250 annually, to help social services during the busy season. There was a time where I think these funds were found by the first selectman whenever the busy season came up. That's become more problematic, and it's not the way it should be. So we want to get this in the budget, and the reason for the need is that between October 1st and January 1st, social services, in addition to what they do every day the rest of the year, handles about 250 energy assistance applications, Thanksgiving meal for those who qualify, the holiday meal, multiple toy and gift programs for children, for seniors, for families, the Warm the Children program. And as I said, this is all in addition to the activities that they do all year long with people facing everyday problems. We're asking for a very conservative 5 hours a week to help address this kind of bulge in the workforce that comes during those 3 months.
For the benefit of the public, could you describe the day-to-day operations of Human Services?
Yes, I think that's everything from helping and directing people to whether they're looking for food stamps, the SNAP program, whether they're looking to find medical insurance, whether people are looking for help with subsidized or Section 8 housing, whether it's getting people some emergency food because they have none at that point. Also been used in a domestic to put someone up safely for the night. I know I'm missing many, and Cheryl would let me know exactly what I missed, but there's a lot of functions that go into social services, and they're very busy.
Thank you. Next would be Public Works.
Alrighty.
Public Works is basically a department of 16 full-time employees with 1 part-time, which makes up approximately 55% of our budget. We're responsible for the repairs and maintenance of all properties and ground owned by the town, all facilities, with the exclusion of the interiors of the school buildings. Approximately 80 miles of roads, 17 miles of sidewalks, all stormwater structures and apparatuses, which makes up another 20% of our budget, with 10% of that being fixed costs, such as contracts for basin cleaning, garbage, portable toilets, that type of stuff. We operate the transfer station, bulky waste facility, which makes up 5% of our budget. General operation we provide all the custodial materials, copy paper for town hall, normal office supplies, makes up about 6% of our budget. Snow and ice removal, overtime, sand and salt is about 7.5% of our budget. And equipment maintenance for all our equipment is 6.5% of our budget.
Just to clarify for my benefit, when you submitted your budget, there was not an updated tip fee coming out of Mira where our solid waste goes. So I guess we need to update your expenses here to reflect the higher tip fee now.
Yes.
Passed through at all municipalities.
Yes, we're up to $93 a ton now. Came up another $10 a ton.
All right. That's it. Thank you. Fire department is next.
All right. The Clinton Volunteer Fire Department is a private corporation that provides all aspects of fire and emergency services to the residents and visitors of our community. Our annual budget request to the town is limited to fire and rescue services. All emergency medical services provided by our agency are managed through a separate internal budget, not through the town's operating budget. Our total operating budget request for this year represents less than a 1% increase over our current approved operating budget. The department operates under 5 separate line items. The salary line represents the town's portion of the shared salary for the 1 full-time fire department administrative assistant. The utility line item covers all utility expenses for fire headquarters and the Glenwood Road Station. The repair and maintenance program covers annual preventive maintenance for the vehicles on our fleet, building and vehicle repairs, equipment and testing and maintenance, repairs and maintenance to our self-contained breathing apparatus. Our stationery and supply budget covers basic office supplies and postage, and our other operating budget covers professional dues, department physicals, training and continuing education, and consumable equipment and uniform supplies.
Thank you. Next is the fire marshal.
Good afternoon. Fire Marshal's office has 4 salaried employees, which makes up the majority of the budget. We have a line item for general supplies, which is safety glasses, gloves, minimal stuff like that. Other equipment could be for something that's needed throughout the year, respirators, camera equipment, or something that doesn't fit into a capital line item. Training for the people that continue in education required by state. And then small line item for professional dues and fees. There is no increase from last year.
Flat budget from last time.
Thank you.
Last up for today is water pollution control. I don't see anyone from water pollution control. Can carry that over to our next one next week. That was it for today's agenda, so thank you all for coming. Appreciate your giving me oversight provided to the public so that the public is better educated on the budget, and we are adjourned.